Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're opening the vault on a specific class of gear. You know, those discontinued anomalies that somehow got legendary status?
Yeah, the ones that people say are just better than anything that came after.
Exactly. We are diving into the world of tone sculpting, and specifically two legendary analog equalizers from BiSS.
That's right. Our material today really dissects the story of the PQ4 parametric equalizer and its specialized counterpart for the low end, the PQ3B bass parametric equalizer.
And these are more than just, rare collectibles.
Oh, much more. They represent a huge shift, really. They brought this high-functioning studio-grade processing down to the pedal board.
So our mission today is to figure out why. Why did these pedals, which were only built between 1991 and 1996, get such a ferocious cult following?
Right.
Why do experts still say they're some of the most powerful and flexible tone-shaping tools that BiSS ever made?
Well, the simple answer, I think, comes down to one thing. Precision versus, standard equalization.
Okay, what's the difference?
Most compact EQ pedals you see, vintage or modern, they use a graphic EQ, a bunch of sliders, all set to fixed frequencies.
The little 7 or 10 band sliders, yeah.
Exactly. The PQ series brought something totally different to the table. It was true, fully parametric control, the kind of surgical power that was previously just for these huge, expensive mixing consoles.
So it's the difference between sanding a whole wall versus...
performing microscopic surgery. That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack that surgical approach then. We have to start with the PQ4 parametric equalizer. That was the one that became the star for guitarists, right?
It really was. It's consistently cited as one of BiSS's most powerful tone-shaping pedals ever, and it's all built around this 4-band architecture.
And it's critically a 100% analog active EQ network.
Yes, and that's so important. This isn't just passive filtering. This is a true active boost and cut, which gives you these massive sculpting capabilities.
So before we get into the GANs, we have to talk about the main thing, the concept that makes it so revolutionary. The Q control.
The Q control.
Yeah, that's the part that always seems to trip people up. What is Q, and why does having control over it matter so much more than just, turning a frequency up or down?
Okay, so Q stands for quality factor. And it basically defines the bandwidth, how wide or narrow the range of frequencies is that you're affecting.
Cool.
Imagine you have this annoying honky spike in your sound, let's say at 750 hertz. With a standard EQ, you'd cut 750 hertz. But that cut might be really broad. It might thin out everything from 500 hertz all the way up to 1,000 hertz.
And your tone just sounds hollow all of a sudden.
Exactly. But with Q control, you change the shape of that cut.
Right.
Think of the frequency as the peak of a mountain. A wide Q means the base of that mountain is really broad. It affects a lot of its neighbors.
Got it.
But if you dial in a narrow Q, that mountain becomes a sharp needle. It isolates only that one specific 750 hertz resonance. You can just scoop out that one tiny needle-thin band, and you leave all the good stuff around it totally untouched.
That is surgical precision. You're not just masking the problem. You're actually locating it and removing it.
That's it. And that brings us to the architecture of the PQ4 because it's so unique in how it uses that Q control across its 4 bands. It's a kind of hybrid approach.
How so?
Well, the LOW band is sweepable, but it has a fixed wide Q. And the HIGH band is a fixed shelving EQ, for general treble presence.
Okay, so the real power is in the middle.
The power is absolutely in the middle. The low mid and high mid bands, that's where you get the dedicated Q control. And for guitars, that's the sweet spot. That's where all the annoying honk lives, but also where the musical body of the instrument is.
And when you combine that precision with the pedal's output, it's a massive plus or minus 50 dB boost or cut.
Which is why people call it a high headroom, low noise studio tool.
Right. That combination is what gives it that reputation as the fixer pedal.
Totally. It cleans up muddy guitars. It can tighten a flubby low end on a bass. It can get rid of that boominess from single coils in a bad room. It just solves problems.
I thought it was fascinating reading about its specialized roles, like for anti-feedback on acoustic instruments.
Oh, yeah.
Where you need that super thin Q just to kill one specific ringing frequency. And people use it to shape really difficult instruments like an ES335 or even in an amp's effects loop.
It does something else, too, which is really interesting. Because of its active circuit and that strong output, it can almost act like a pseudo preamp.
How does it work?
Well, because it has so much clean output, a player can dial in a narrow Q, boost the mid-range by, say, plus 10 dB, and that super focused boost pushes the amp's own preamp into this really musical, almost transparent saturation.
So you're using EQ as a kind of subtle, very specific overdrive.
Exactly. And that depth of control is what made the PQ4 a cult classic. I mean, producers still pull these out as outboard EQ in studios today.
Okay, so if the PQ4 was the king for guitar and general instrument shaping, why did BSS release a specific version for bass at the exact same time? Let's talk about the PQ3B bass parametric equalizer.
That's a great question because at first glance it does seem redundant, doesn't it? But the PQ3B, it's all about a fundamental difference in how low frequencies behave.
It was tailored specifically for bass and other deep instruments.
Yeah.
Professionals called it a preamp shaper. So the architecture had to change. The PQ4 had 4 bands, but the PQ3B only has 3. That sounds like a downgrade.
It sounds like it, yeah. But the sources all explain why it's actually an upgrade for bass.
And what's the reason?
This is the crucial point. This is what makes the PQ3B possibly even more surgical than the PQ4 for what it does. On the PQ3B, all 3 of its bands have full Q control.
Oh, wow. Okay. So unlike the PQ4 where it was just the 2 mid bands.
Exactly. The PQ3B gives you that surgical precision across the fundamental, the low, mid, and the mid-range frequencies, the entire spectrum where bass resonance and mud actually live.
So that optimization means you can apply that needle-like precision not just to the nights you hear, but to the sub-bass and the fundamentals where all that woominess comes from.
Precision is absolutely the key. You can surgically carve out room, boom, or mud without thinning out the essential body of the bass tone.
And experts love it for live shows.
Oh, it's unparalleled for fixing room problems on the fly. You know, standing waves, weird resonances that change from venue to venue. It's an incredible tone corrector for the front of house mix, the FOH.
The sound the audience actually hears.
Exactly.
And its uses go beyond just a standard bass guitar. I read it's used on extended range guitars to tame that low-end bloom.
Yeah, that can get really unruly. And it's a favorite for synth bass, for carving out a perfect little pocket in a really dense mix so the low end just sits right.
So when you look at them together, the PQ4 and the PQ3B really were the absolute peak of what BSS was doing with EQ pedals.
For sure. They let the player step away from those rigid, fixed sliders and basically get the control of a mixing engineer, but right there on the floor.
This level of control, it sounds like a dream. But we should probably ground this in reality a little bit. The sources are pretty clear that this power comes with a few trade-offs, especially for someone just starting out.
That's vital context, yeah. When you introduce fully parametric control where you can sweep the frequency, change the level, and change the Q, you're introducing a lot of complexity.
There's a steep learning curve.
A very real learning curve. It is remarkably easy to dial in a truly terrible sound, you know, thin or abrasive if you don't know what you're listening for.
You can do harm just as easily as you can do good.
Absolutely. And then there's the technical reality of noise. Now, the PQ series is praised for being low noise.
Yeah.
But if you use a very narrow Q with a huge boost, like cranking the output by plus 15 dB on one tiny frequency band, you're essentially using a magnifying glass for sound.
That's a perfect analogy.
The pedal doesn't create noise, but it's so precise and powerful that it will instantly magnify any noise that's already in your signal chain.
A bad cable, a noisy pedal before it, bad power.
All of it. The price of that precision is exposure. It reveals everything that's wrong with your rig while you're trying to fix your tone.
And speaking of price,
Yeah.
we have to mention the aftermarket cost. Since they were only made for that short window, 91 to 96, they're now incredibly rare.
And very collectible. Yeah, they command some serious prices online, which really cements their status as these discontinued, indispensable secret weapons.
It seems like they earned it, though.
They absolutely did, and their legacy is just immense. What's really fascinating is how modern boutique parametric EQs owe this huge creative debt to the PQ4's layout and its capabilities.
They proved there was a market for it.
They proved that players wanted that studio flexibility in a compact box. They really paved the way for the sophisticated stuff we have today.
So to summarize what we've learned here, the PQ4 and PQ3B got this legendary status because they put console-grade EQ right onto the pedal board.
Yep. They didn't just give you another knob, they gave you complete control over the 3 critical variables: frequency, level, and bandwidth. It's like having a compact mastering EQ for your instrument.
And that brings us to how you can apply this knowledge. Understanding this concept, the concept of Q, of surgical control, that's the key to moving past just tweaking your sound.
And into actually mastering it. Yeah. If you know how to sweep a frequency and adjust its Q, you get the ability to accurately diagnose why a room or an instrument sounds bad.
You can find the problem frequency and just remove it, instead of making these huge blanket cuts and then boosting other things to try and compensate.
That surgical control, it translates directly to efficiency. It saves you so much time and so many headaches.
So here's something for you to think about. If the PQ4 so successfully brought this complex studio EQ to the pedal board, what other high-end, traditionally complex studio tools, I'm thinking compressors or maybe specialized reverb units, have successfully made that same transition to become these compact, essential tools we use today?
That's the knowledge you can explore next. Go experiment with these concepts of bandwidth control. It'll fundamentally change how you hear and manage sound.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.